Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission regular meeting scheduled for May 15th, 2024. I will go ahead and start with a call to order and the roll call. So, Chair, if you wouldn't mind going with I'm calling us to order. If you wouldn't mind doing the roll call for us.
Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Chair Coombs?
I am here.
Commissioner Elman?
Here.
Commissioner Feruzin?
Here.
Commissioner Hakobian?
Here.
Commissioner McKenna?
Here.
Commissioner Wenzel?
Here.
Thank you. The public comment period will be upcoming in a few minutes. For community members here in person, please complete a speaker's card and hand to staff. It might be either yellow or white. For members who wish to phone in comments, please call 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. And with that, we'll move on to the flag salute. So, Paul, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the flag salute.
Please join me as the flag of our country. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul. So we will move into item C, which is commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And if it's okay, we'll go ahead and move from my left to my right. Romick, do you want to start?
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Reporting out some community activities. On Saturday, May 11th, I attended the Police and Fire Day. It was wonderful to have a table with fellow commissioners and the opportunity to speak about the driver safety campaign. And it was a fantastic event, and it was well attended. And on Tuesday, May 7th, I attended the school safety committee meeting with the superintendent, with Ann. I know Paul wasn't able to make it. We had really great conversations, which I'm sure we'll share later. On Wednesday, May 1st, I met with West Coast Customs, and happy to say that they're officially part of the driver safety campaign. And then on Saturday, April 27th, I attended the National Drug National Take Back event, met some really great DEA agents, and had some interesting conversations about their roles and responsibilities. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Romick. Paul?
Yes, I'd like to say that last week, while we were purchasing a new car, I was very happy to see the Drive Right, Save Lives flyers on this salesman's desk. We spoke about the program for a while, and I was really happy to see how well informed they were, how well Romick has done, what a great job Romick has done in communicating that. I also participated in Police and Fire Day last Saturday. I think that the biggest part of our role was communicating with the public, and the more people we get to talk to, the better, and it was a great opportunity for that, so thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Layla?
Yeah, just to report back on the data requests that we had discussed and voted on at the last meeting. So that's been submitted, and so far, no questions, but, just have checked in with folks. And so that's, moving forward as it is. And then also attended the Police and Fire Day. We were there really early because we had a whole slate of baseball games, birthday parties, weddings that day. It was a crazy day, but even first thing in the morning, it was packed. There was a ton of kids there and families and other folks too. And it's always a great event. So.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and jump at this point. I also attended the Police and Fire Day. I want to thank Romick for putting together all the graphic materials for that day. It was, and actually all the table materials. I think I only brought candy. It was about the only thing that I brought. But I really appreciate the public coming out with the questions and comments that came up. Some of the questions that came my direction were, they were under the assumption that we were part of the police department. And so it was a really good discussion to talk about how we partner and work with the police department. But we're an accountability group, and we're able to ask questions. We had a few folks that inquired and asked about the application process, so we might get some new applicants coming out as well, and some just really good dialogue with some of the community members. So I'm really grateful, appreciative of the department for inviting us to participate in that and being able to collaborate in that way. So thank you. Mike?
I also attended on May 11th Police and Fire Day. I thought the department did an excellent job of putting on displays and educating the public, and I thought that our table worked very well as for the commission. And today I attended the Coffee with a Cop, which was at Nordstrom's Rack in the Empire Center. I thought it was a great event because I have attended previous Coffee with a Cop where I thought this attracted a whole new element, a whole new group of people who normally don't get to attend events like that. So kudos to Nordstrom's Rack for hosting the department.
Thank you, Mike. And Mike.
I have nothing to add here.
Okay. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the Police and Fire Day. We were meeting a new grandson.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I did meet with Ramik and our, Dr. Paramo, and when we report, we'll have a lot to update.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. We will turn now to item D, which is oral communications for 3 minutes. And again, we're going to go ahead and take the cards in the order that I've received them. And then hopefully folks are able to queue up if they're calling in via telephone to 818-238-3335. Our first public comment is coming from Mr. Joel Schlossman. Mr. Schlossman, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your service. I, too, attended the Fire Service Day on Saturday. I'd been away for a few years, and I got to tell you, I liked it. I liked the way they moved it onto the building proper and out of the streets, and I just thought it was wonderful. And I stopped at your table. I had some nice discussions with some of you, and I thought that was wonderful, too, to get a chance to visit, because 3 minutes at a time is kind of hard here. Now, I picked up this flyer off the table there, Drive Right, Save Lives, and I looked at it and I analyzed it. I think it's a great idea. There's something missing here, and I wondered if it was done on purpose. And, we can put in order some of the things that cause horrific accidents, any accident. And one of them is distracted driving due to cell phones. And this thing does not mention cell phones at all. And I've talked to my boys about it. And it's so tempting because the phone syncs up to the stereo and you can, choose your music through your phone. And they're doing all kind of things that I don't know anything about, but it's easy to be distracted when you're driving with a cell phone. And it could be just looking down at a text, So I think that needed a little more attention. I look at the headlines all around Los Angeles and here in Burbank, and I'm troubled by the restaurants that are closing, businesses that are closing, having a hard time. Here's one: Americans are choking on surging fast food prices. Now we all know about that, and it goes to our economy, I believe. And here's something else that you've all read: Empire Center has become the crime mecca of Burbank. And I visit Walmart, maybe once a month. And last time I was there, a lot of things were behind glass. And that's a clue that things are amiss within our community. I'm not used to seeing that, at CVS, behind glass, at Walgreens, behind glass, and Walmart. If you want some mundane item like deodorant or something, you got to get an employee to help you. And all these things go to the economy. And this sign I have in front of me, the school district has put about a $450 million bond on the November 5th ballot with interest. It's $1.1 billion. That's $10,000 for every man, woman, and child in Burbank. Now, I believe that this bond, making things harder for people to pay rent, because it escalates the cost of everything: food, rent, gas, everything. It can lead to more crime because people become more desperate. So I've got 7 people here who I know live in Burbank.
Thank you, Mr. Schlossman.
I'll say it 3 times. Thank you.
Our next comment comes from Shauna Millman. Welcome, Ms. Millman.
Thank you. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Shauna Millman, and I live across the street from Dolores Huerta Middle School. I have a child who is finishing at McKinley Elementary, and for the past 6 years, I've been a member of the School Safety Committee. This year, I have observed traffic violations around the school reach very concerning levels. I'm reaching out to beg that additional resources be dedicated to patrolling the areas around all 16 of the Burbank schools during drop-off, pickup, and for special events all year round. Recently, I've had to instruct individuals almost daily that blocking my driveway to park is legal in the state of California. This occurs while almost all my neighbors' driveways are being blocked as well. I'm happy to report that this year we have not had to deal with individuals parking in our driveways as much. That was a much bigger issue last year. While the lack of adherence to the parking and driving regulations is an annoyance, and thankfully has not turned into something more serious, double parking is my biggest concern. As cars are forced to drive on the opposite side of the road to pass, individuals walk through the cars, including children, that could easily be injured. Some days the street is a literal parking lot with double parking down the entire middle of the street. What if a homeowner has an emergency or an emergency vehicle needs to get through? All of this is extremely unsafe. Without a doubt, laziness is fueling this problem. This is especially true for secondary schools, where students can wait a few minutes or even walk to their parents rather than needing to be picked up directly in front of the school. Why is creating unsafe situations the answer? Only because these individuals think that they are more important than anyone else. They do not need to arrive in a timely manner or follow laws, and instead are willing to inconvenience everyone else and even put their own they're putting lives, including their own children's, in danger. Shouldn't they be required to follow the laws that many other individuals are already following? For the record, I do not believe this is a BUSD or school issue. I do believe they inform and promote families to follow traffic and parking rules. Since school employees are unable to enforce the laws, they are ignored, forced, or berated when asking individuals to adhere to the driving and parking regulations. What the district can do is mandate that school employees are never allowed to let children be released to someone who is double parked or who leaves their car parked in the middle of the street, especially at the elementary level where someone oversees children who are not picked up on time. Ignoring parking regulations, double parking, car accidents, getting out of the car in the middle of the road, and having children walk through traffic all happen daily. Many neighbors use cones or put up signs to discourage illegal parking, but rather than be Burbank Police Department or parking enforcement being more present, the neighbors have been asked to remove the signs, as I do not believe the signs are legal. The signs were removed, but then the parking rules are never enforced. I can count on one hand the time that there has been police presence outside of Huerta related to traffic this year. I understand that patrolling 16 schools is very difficult, but what about sending parking enforcement? Well, I did see them one day for about 15 minutes after pickup. They really only patrol during street sweeping. Aren't they supposed to patrol all the time? Not only would it help increase safety, but it would also generate revenue for the city. If Burbank Police Department and parking enforcement could be more vigilant during drop-off, pickup, and for special events, and have unpredictable year-round appearances, I really do think this would create a safer environment. I'm more than willing to help derive or enhance a comprehensive list of parking and driving safety guidelines that should be followed. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Are there any other, no, there's no other comments coming from the audience here. Are there any comments via phone?
No, sir.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and open this up to brief commission responses to public comments, keeping in mind that we cannot act on items raised during public comment, but we can provide brief, non-substantive responses, request clarification, or refer the items to staff. So let's go ahead and open it up for responses to comments. Mike, go ahead.
I want to thank Mr. I'm going to mispronounce your name, Schlossman, for coming in. And I know what he's talking about, and I appreciate you mentioning it to the commission. I myself regularly checked crimemapping.com in the area, and I noticed that the South Victory Place 1300 is prominently displayed almost every day in multiple listings, suggesting that it is a point of concern for increased crime. And I'm not sure if there's something that the store can support a local remote station or something. It seems like our people must be there almost all the time. And I'm not sure if the council is aware. I suspect they are. But after something gets out of hand, I think that there can be issued some concerns about, I'm trying to think of the correct word when you're a problem at the.
A nuisance?
There you go, thank you. A nuisance as an issue. I don't know if, I suspect that our department has been in regular contact with the store at that address, Walmart. But I don't know if we get any response from them or enough response from them. Thank you,
Mike.
Mr. Schlossman.
Thank you. Any other comments? Romick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Mr. Schlossman, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us in public comment. It was great talking to you at the Police and Fire Day. Thank you for coming to our booth. And I appreciate you pointing out the cell phone driving statistic missing. That was something that was just I guess we just weren't paying attention to that, but that's really great. Thank you for pointing that out. That's something I've noted. And I do agree with you. It seems like crime has increased in Empire Center. I mean, I've been on ride-alongs where we respond to multiple calls within an hour going back to the Empire Center for theft. Saw the process of apprehending the suspects, et cetera. So I mean, it's heartbreaking what's happening out there. So we completely sympathize with that. And then Ms. Milliman, I know that the driver safety campaign is something that we've been working on. And also, that also extends to the parents as well, because that was our target audience, because a lot of the parents, I mean, we talk about slowing these kids down, but like, I mean, I have a daughter who's 13 years old that goes to John Muir Middle School. For me, it's like the next conversation is how do we convince the parents to drive appropriately as well? So I completely understand where you're coming from. And something I guess we can talk to council about. Thank you.
Thank you, Romick. Paul, did you want to say something?
Again, thank you, Joel, for coming in. I think should phrase it distracted driving because with all the technology nowadays, no one's actually texting in the car, but they have a dashboard that is a computer screen. And so it is distracted driving, and I think that's a big point to bring up. The article that came out about the Empire Center, they listed Costco as one of the businesses. Is that considered Empire Center? Is that a?
Sergeant
It
saying
is?
yes.
And then it was way down on the list, but it was listed as one of the businesses. I was unaware of that. But I also thought that Captain Cornels did a wonderful job today of explaining to people that some of this is reporting, a lot of it is being enforced. And I hope the people of Burbank feel safe at the Empire Center. And as for the school safety, as Roman pointed out, I'm on that committee. I have done my ride-alongs at 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's frustrating. I've seen a police officer in a SUV, very visible vehicle, put his siren lights on, and the cars don't move in front of Burbank High School. So I agree. What I have seen in the past, when my son was in elementary school, and my wife for another 2 weeks is an elementary school teacher, is the first 2 weeks of school, there's just hyper enforcement, which helps with pattern of behavior. And we were just talking before you came in about meeting with the superintendent on how we can communicate with the principals prior to August 15th when school starts, so that these patterns of behavior are established on day one. And I think if there's hyper enforcement during the month of August and September, that establishes the behavior for the rest of the year. But thank you very much for your input. These are exactly the things that we're concerned about. Thank you.
Paul. Leila, go ahead.
Okay. First, just want to say thank you to both the people, Mr. Schlossman and Mrs. Millman, for coming down tonight. Thank you, and your daughter there and your friend. And just want to echo that I personally also have seen the terrible driving and safety issues at the schools in town, and I have heard the stories of school staff being yelled at by the parents, right? So it's, a lot of our work has been focused on the street racing and speeding, that are, young people are doing. But yes, definitely the parents are also maybe not doing those type of behaviors, but doing other dangerous types of behaviors, or just inconsiderate, right? Blocking people's driveways and things like that. So, so I think the idea of, setting out at the beginning of the year, having an increased presence, I think is helpful. And I think also, maybe like you said, people maybe get comfortable. So maybe there is some way to have sort of a somewhat, regular schedule where, schools get dropped in on throughout the year, but understanding that there are limitations to capacity. So, officers can't be at every school every day at drop off and pick up, but maybe there's some sort of way to work in a little bit more. I don't know. But definitely something needed. And then also not this commission's purview, but maybe there are other things around crosswalks and those kinds of things that can be improved as well. So, definitely needed.
Thank you. Ann, go ahead.
I know there's some things from our meeting with Dr. Paramo that we'll report out on, but I'm wondering, every school is almost different. We have the same general problems of parents just, I'm going to drop them off where I want to and when I want to. I think that's a common philosophy. But then each school, be it elementary, middle, or the high schools, based on their location, have some different things. So I'm wondering if how much of this is, if you will, peer pressure. I know you've got, our schools have individual school site school site councils or school safety groups. At the high schools, there's school site.
And if you could speak into the microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You missed a good part. But I think that how much of this is just might end up with a lot of peer pressure from inside. What can your school safety council meet on and then come and say, this is what we need. These are our problems. Because Huerta is different than Burroughs, 5 blocks, 6, 7 blocks away. Jefferson is different than, to some degree, is different than Stevenson. You know, Stevenson ends at a street.
And I don't want to get too far in the analysis, but when we get into the analysis, we're actually going beyond what we can talk about during the brief comments. Yeah,
some of that is in discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Mike, go ahead.
I'd like to thank the speakers for coming to our meeting tonight. I agree with both speakers. I think all of us who have done ride-alongs have ended up, or during the ride-along, we've been to the Empire Center. We know there's an issue, and a lot of it there's some things we can do here in Burbank, but a lot of things, the issues go beyond Burbank, especially to our Los Angeles County officials. Ms. Gilman, I hear you. I live very close to Jefferson Elementary, and it's terrible there too. And I have to disagree with my colleagues. The residents are smart enough to know that the heavy police presence is the first couple of weeks of the school year. After that, it's different. So I believe human behavior is basically, there's a good chance I'll get away with it, so I'll do it. And until I think we need to impose some random enforcement, things won't change. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a couple of brief comments. Mr. Schlossman, thank you again for your comments. And one of the things that I'm aware of in the commission, we're diving into this, is we have access to citywide data. But this actually also points out that we probably can ask those questions to dive deeper into specific crime areas. We've talked about retail theft before, and so I'm hoping that we can revisit this at some point as well to spend more time there. Then also to Ms. Millen, thank you for your comments as well. I actually have a clarifying question for Mr. Johal. Hopefully you can help us with this one. Who controls the fines and the fines associated with traffic infractions? Is that done locally? Is that done by another level of government? But who controls the cost of those fines?
Like who sets those costs?
Yeah, who sets the rates for those fines?
So technically they're set by statute, state statute.
State, okay.
And they're collected through the court system.
Okay.
And then divvied up.
Okay.
That
Okay.
way.
I think that helps me and everything. Again, we'll hopefully we can address it further, and hopefully the subcommittee that's working with the schools can spend some more time with this as well. Thank you. Thank you all for that. We're going to go ahead and move on to item F, which is approval of the minutes from April 17th, 2024. Hope everybody's got a copy of that. What we're looking for is a motion to approve and a second. So Paul motions to approve. Big Mike Chapman seconds it. All in favor of approving the minutes from April 17th, say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. Any opposition? One opposed? Oh, no, is that aye? Okay, all right. It's approved unanimously. Okay, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to item G, items of business. First item up is presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the status of patrol vehicles and technology updates. We have Lieutenant Mark Stoll. Lieutenant Stoll, welcome.
Good evening. Giving a second.
And did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, like I stole your car.
Perfect.
Just not at the Empire Center.
Perfect. Perfect. There may be some sensitivity around that. I'm just giving you a heads up, so.
While we wait for that, my name is Lieutenant Mark Stoll. I've been an employee at the Burbank Police Department for 24 years. I'm currently assigned to the Internal Affairs Bureau. Prior to that, I've held various assignments in patrol, detective bureau, and administrative roles. So I'm here today to talk to you about the fleet and answer any questions you might have. Do you have the PowerPoint? Do I need the? I'm not magic, unfortunately. Sorry. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about our police fleet, mostly the marked patrol units that you would see here that you've gone on in ride-alongs. Currently, as the fleet stands, we have 28 marked black and white patrol vehicles. Those are the Ford Interceptor utilities, the police version of the Explorer. Of those 28, 3 of them are marked supervisor cars. 2 of them are Chevy Tahoes equipped for our canine units, leaving 23 for our patrol officers to drive around with the prisoner transport cage. Out of those, there's a mix of hybrid and regular gas vehicles. The hybrids are the newest ones. And then we have 14 BMW motorcycles that are for our traffic enforcement. In addition to that, we have various unmarked cars for our investigations bureau. We have 2 unmarked interceptor vehicles for our gang unit and other special detective units. We also have a SWAT armored rescue vehicle and a SWAT equipment truck. And then we have 12 right-hand drive Jeep vehicles that were formerly for our parking control officers. We've now moved to a contract company that has their own vehicles, but we still have those in our fleet. The cars right now as they stand, and I call them cars because that's just what I call them. They're police vehicles, but the technology that's in them, what the officers use to get to and from the calls and to manage all the information coming from dispatch is monitored through an in-dash screen. You can kind of see it there on the dash, and then there's a keyboard that gives them access to the CAD, the dispatch, and various other programs they use, such as the in-car camera, which we've had for about 4 years, Chief. So there's a camera mounted that faces the front and also one in the prisoner compartment. We used to use roof-mounted license plate reader technology. A lot of that has failed over the years due to just age and then lack of service from the company, and we're transitioning away from that. At the time when we implemented this in-dash monitor, it was state-of-the-art. We actually put in for an award back in 2018 for Best Cruiser Design, and we were awarded the Best Cruiser Design at Cops West in Long Beach. And it was really a good transition from our Chevy Caprice car fleet, which for someone of my stature was very challenging to get in and out of on a daily basis. If you've ever seen On the Town with the Mayor, where I stuffed Mayor Gordon into the driver's seat just to emphasize how tight these cars are. This was a big deal. It was a big help to the officers, to their wellness, getting in and out, as well as for just the amount of room in the trunk or cargo area. A lot of that technology has aged out. The cars we're using basically a desktop CPU, much like the ones you'd see on any city office. They weren't ruggedized. They weren't really designed to work in the back of a patrol car with heat, vibration. You'll hear the chief often say, we're open 24/7. A lot of these cars they're running almost all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. What we're going to now, we are implementing a new CAD and RMS system. We're transitioning away from our Tiburon system that we had for 14 years, Chief?
Sounds right.
So we're moving to a new system later this summer. It's a company called Versaterm. It's $4 million plus technology suite. Basically, that is the brains of the organization that's going to run our day-to-day operations. That's how we get the...
Mark, define CAD, RMS, and just more for the audience.
CAD is our computer-aided dispatch. If someone calls 911 or the general non-emergency line, the dispatcher will take the information, put it into the computer-aided dispatch, and that's what goes to the officers that routes them to the calls, and then it tracks who's where, when they were there, and all the other information. RMS is our records management. If there's a police report or other data that's inputted, that's what captures that. We've been using a software suite for about 14 years now, and it's come to its end of life. The company's not supporting it. We've got funding to implement a new, more modern system that's going to allow us to do our jobs hopefully better and more efficiently. And to do that, we needed to put new technology in the car. That's going to include, as you see here, a laptop, a ruggedized Panasonic Toughbook, which will allow the officers to do mobile field reporting rather than coming back to the station now, which they have to do. The laptops can be removed from the cars. They can actually take reports from the scene, submit them electronically, have them approved by a supervisor without ever having to go back to the station, which, you know how traffic is in town. If you are out on the west side of town and you have to drive all the way back to the station in the middle of the day, it can take you 20 minutes plus just to do that. Then you have to get in, write the reports on the desktop PC, and then you might have to go 20 minutes back out just to get to the next call. So we can shave that 45-minute round trip off and have the officers be in the field more productive. So that's our hope, that we get a smooth transition to this. And in doing so, they'll have these laptops available to them. Additionally, our contract with Axon is coming up for renewal this fall as well. With that renewal, we are transitioning from the Fleet 2 in-car camera to a Fleet 3 in-car camera. The benefit of that is it has two forward-facing cameras, one for the dash cam, which records the police activity. The other one will be a camera that will capture license plates, a mobile automated license plate reader system built into the system. So we don't have two separate programs running, it all runs on one. These cameras also will be GPS trackable, live streamable by supervisors if necessary, and it's just a better technology as far as how the videos integrate with the computers and then offload to the evidence management system. It's more efficient. It's basically, we're going from an iPhone 5 to an iPhone 14, if you want to put it that way. So I'll talk about more about how that works later, but how our fleet's managed right now, we do not personally acquire the vehicles, maintenance the vehicles, or anything like that. That's all done through Public Works with input from us, through fleet management and purchasing. So what they have to do is they have to get information about what we need. They make a request for proposal, RFP, get quotes for the cars, and then when the money's available, they will order the cars. When the cars come in, they get outfitted. We use a vendor in Orange County that we've used for years. So the car has to go there, it gets the light bar put on, the cages, and then it comes back to us and the fleet helps set up all the lighting, and then IT will put the computers in and do all the technology. All the maintenance of the cars is done by our Public Works. That's down at the city yards, down on Lake, south of Olive. They try to touch the cars once a month, the cars in our regular fleet, just for preventative maintenance, oil changes, things like that. Any more serious maintenance or damage will be done either by a dealer or through a body shop. Our current fleet status, as I mentioned, we had 28 marked cars. 9 of those right now, as of last week, were out of service. 5 due to crashes, which are pending repairs. 2 due to wear and tear, and 2 for regular maintenance. So that's 33% of our patrol fleet is unavailable to our officers. Part of that, when I talk about wear and tear, it's due to our historical replacement and replacement cycle. It used to be 36 months. When I started here in 2000, it was rare to see a car with 60,000 miles. They would get rid of them every 3 years, which, you know, it doesn't sound like a lot if it's, you know, you have a car for 5-6 years, but these cars are being driven 24/7. They're idling. Idle hours add up to equivalent about 30 miles per hour driving. If you idle it for an hour, it's worth 30 miles on the engine. The current replacement cycle went to 60 months. That happened around 2008, financial crisis, give or take. They've also done some what's called deferred ordering of vehicles to kind of spread the costs out and try and make them last a little bit longer. What happened with that? Well, just like anything, when you put stuff off, things can happen. COVID-19 happened, chip shortages happened, supply chain happened. We had cars that were not getting replaced because we could not get them. We just couldn't. We looked nationwide. I think the chief can attest to that. East Coast, West Coast, northern U.S., southern U.S. We couldn't get them. So what does that mean? We have cars now, when I say we used to have cars that were 60,000 miles and aging out, now we have cars that are 140,000 miles. Part of the problem with that is we have cars that are very old. They require more maintenance. We have staffing shortages at Public Works that maintain the car. We have staffing shortages at body shops that fix the cars, staffing shortages at dealerships, part shortages at dealerships. When you have a car that has 115,000 miles, like one of our sergeant's cars, the transmission just stopped working last week. They couldn't even drive it to the city yards or to a dealer. They had to tow it. And the powertrain warranty is gone. So the city now has to eat the cost of putting a new transmission in this car to keep it running until we get new cars. So a lot of unintended consequences due to things outside of our control. We've also, in our last round of cars that we were able to purchase, switched over to the hybrid Interceptor in an attempt to try and save money on gasoline, be more green. Those cars have been very poor for us as far as battery pack failures, hybrid drive failures, excessive maintenance requirements, things like that. I don't know why. They've just not worked for us. The driving dynamics are also different because the cars are quite a bit heavier with the battery pack. When we bought these cars, they came in black. We put a vinyl wrap on the doors and the roof. That vinyl wrap is very fragile as far as door dings, rubbing up against it with equipment, sun fading, and the cars, I mean, if you've seen them, they look pretty bad. I had one person once that asked me if the car got hit by a shotgun blast because it was just torn up. I had to tell him, no, it's not that kind of city, but it was kind of embarrassing. So going forward, we have 12 new vehicles we have them. The problem is now we got to outfit them. So we're going from a full black vehicle to cars that are painted on the doors and roofs so that we won't have the fading or the chipping or the wear and tear issues. They're all gas vehicles. We're not going the hybrids anymore due to our experience. And in our next order cycle, I believe Captain Cornels is going to make a push to get Chevy Tahoes so we can have a kind of diversified fleet. The Tahoes are a little bigger. They'll have more room for the officers, but they're also going to have more issues as far as size driving around. It's just a larger car. Future planning. What are we going to do in the future? What's out there? You'll see there, that's a picture of our Caprice car that we had before, the Interceptors. A lot of the major manufacturers are not making sedans anymore. They've shifted more towards utility-style vehicles. Those cars were very bad for us. They just didn't work for people of size, the computer equipment, the firearms that were in the car. It just took up a lot of the cabin space. They were very fast, which not always a good thing, but they just didn't work. So that leaves us with two manufacturers making police vehicles that we've had experience with, which is Ford and Chevy. So the Interceptor and the Tahoe. Dodge also makes a Durango, but we've never been a city that's purchased Dodge vehicles. Electrification. So this is a big thing on future planning, is how do we go green? How do we make these cars more efficient? How do we spend less on gasoline? Currently, right now, there's no police pursuit-rated electric vehicles on the market. Ford is marketing their Mach-E, and Chevy has their Blazer EV that they're trying to put into the police role. Our history, like I said, with the hybrids has been pretty subpar, so we'll see how this technology shakes out. There are several agencies local to us that are testing the Tesla Model Ys, such as South Pasadena and Anaheim. South Pasadena made a big push into the Teslas because they couldn't get the Fords. They just couldn't get them, but they could get the Tesla. The problem with that is there's a lot of the things that go into the car, such as the prisoner compartments, the computers, like the Tesla at South Pasadena, they had to take the glass roof off and put a different roof panel in. Additionally, with Teslas, if you've ever had one and gotten a crash, they're very expensive to repair. They require specialized body shops, and a lot of times if you have any damage to battery packs, the cars are totaled. So we'll see how these experiments go. And when I say battery packs being damaged, I'm talking about in a patrol car, if you drive over a speed bump at speed and you damage something underneath, it can easily be replaced, such as the oil pan or something else. If you damage the battery pack, that's the majority of the price of the car. Additionally, is how you're going to charge them. So if these cars are running 24/7, 365, you're going to need to put in some sort of a charging network. The fast chargers, they could work. The problem is you have to have a large footprint to put the transformers, the cabling, the charging stalls. The level 2 chargers like you see over here by the library, those are going to take, if the car's almost empty, 10 to 12 hours to charge, which is just not going to work when we're rotating and we only have 20 cars and we need 30. So I don't know what the answer is to that. We'll see how the technology shapes up with battery and with charging. But right now, there's no viable options. Maybe for administrative vehicles or detectives, that could be an option. But for our patrol fleet, it just doesn't look like that's going to work right now. But technology moves fast, so we'll see what happens. That's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If I can't answer it, I'll defer to the chief. But
Perfect.
hopefully I can.
Appreciate that. We'll open it up. We'll go ahead and start. Paul, if you're open to starting, this was an agenda item that you had actually brought to us. So you want to start? You can say no.
I'll start by just saying, I wish it wasn't so dismal. I understand your pain. Years ago, I bought my mother a CHP car and had 75,000 miles on it. They took to auction. So, and those vehicles, they are better equipped than most because they do run 24/7. Now I'm in stereo. And it was, for that reason, it was a good car. But like you said, it was 75,000 miles on it. I guess the other concern just is that the amount of time, it's when do we lose cost effectiveness. So I think it was a very detailed report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments that folks wanted to bring? Questions or comments? Mike, go ahead.
Right now, sometimes when I go into the station parking lot, there's a whole group of cars. Nobody's in them. The engines are running. And I've been told that's because if you turn it off, it's going to take a long time to reboot the computer systems in those vehicles.
Yes. Twofold. One, the way that the Fleet 2 dash cams are set up is, I won't bore you with the details, but the video has to fly through the air from the camera to the computer that's in the trunk, and then it has to go from the computer to a Wi-Fi hotspot in the car, and if the car shuts off, it doesn't do that transfer, so we don't get the videos. Secondly, if the car is turned off for more than 40-ish minutes, all the electronics will shut off. And if you have to go back and you have to run out to a call, it takes a while for the computer, the router, the modem to boot up while you might get at the call before you have your computer up to see what's happening. As we go forward with the new software CAD RMS system, hopefully we'll be able to not have to come back to the station as much, to where we're going to need to have the cars parked there. Because what happens is the officers go into the station to write their reports, leave the car running so the videos can offload, and also leave the computer system on. So if you don't have to come back to the station, you don't have to do that part. Secondly, the Fleet 3 is going to transfer data differently. It has a dedicated, I'll call it a brain, that sits in the trunk. The video comes straight off an Ethernet cable instead of Wi-Fi. And so then it goes from that brain to the Wi-Fi hotspot when it gets to the station. So it's newer, better technology that works faster.
Also, in looking at electric vehicles, you park all your vehicles underground.
Yes.
Now, lithium-ion batteries are a little bit dangerous sometimes in confined spaces. So would you even consider putting chargers underneath your building?
That would be out of my scope of. That would be something that Water and Power and Public Works would have to.
And Fire Department.
Deal with, and yeah. But as you've seen, cars can catch on fire, but gas cars can also, so.
It's a little more difficult to put out the fire on lithium-ion battery than a gasoline-powered vehicle.
It can be, yeah. I'm not a fireman, but I've seen some of them, so.
Thank you very much.
Great. Ann, you looked like you were leaning in to ask a question.
I'm so perplexed for you.
Yeah.
I think that great detail, learned an awful lot. But I'm also wondering, it seems like police departments are against the odds. In the news, I hear that, laws that are going to require electric cars, and that we're only going to make electric cars, and you're only going to drive electric cars. How does that talk affect what you're trying to do, which is just have 24/7 workable police cars?
We'll have to adapt to whatever those laws are. I mean, obviously, if they make all gas-powered cars illegal, we'll have to find something that's going to work for us. So we'll adjust with the technology and the times, and we'll be
Yeah,
flexible.
it doesn't seem like technology has much consideration for police needs. Or am I wrong?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can't control. So,
Okay.
Unfortunately, we work under the parameters that we're given, and we do the best with what we can, and we just adapt to the needs and what we have.
Thank you, Ed. Other questions, comment? Leila, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question on what you had mentioned about, and it came up earlier in terms of the traffic enforcement, right? So there is a kind of third-party contractor now, right, doing some of the traffic enforcement? Or parking enforcement, rather.
Enforcement, yes.
Sorry, yes. And you mentioned there were 12 vehicles that used to be used for that. I'm just wondering if there are any, what are the plans for those vehicles? Or
well-
is there, I understand they're not outfitted to be regular,
Those
patrol
vehicles
cars.
are 14 years old. They were on a 60-month replacement cycle, so you can do the math. 14 years is a lot more than 60 months. But I'll let the chief respond to that as far as what our future plans are for those.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So those vehicles are still in our fleet, and as you know, we've gone to a third-party service provider for parking. And part of that contract, we purchase vehicles that they use exclusively for parking enforcement. The vehicles that we have in our fleet right now, 2 are being used by our permanent parking control officers, and the remainder of the vehicles will ultimately be salvaged, but they are still considered in our fleet.
Thank you. Romick, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Coombs. Lieutenant Marstol, thank you so much for that presentation. So as far as the maintenance go, how long does it take for you guys to get these vehicles back after it goes in Public Works Yard?
So Monday through Friday, generally the day before, or if it's a Friday, they'll put up on our whiteboard which cars they're going to service. So we'll know on Monday morning they're going to take car 12 and car 14. So in the morning, 1 or 2 of the guys will come. We take the weapons out of it, we put them in our weapons armory, and then they take them down and they service them and hopefully bring them back, usually before lunch. I mean, they're checking the suspension, the tires, the tire pressure, the oil, and things like that. It's not like a heavy maintenance. They might do an oil change. If there's something they find that's more significant that they can fix, they'll try to fix it as soon as they can. If they have to order parts, they have to wait for the parts. And if not, and they have to take it to a dealer, then you're on the dealer's timeline. And hopefully it's under warranty. I mean, these cars do have, I think the powertrain's a 100,000-mile warranty. So hopefully we get them back the same day. The problem is like the one with the transmission. So now we have a car with 115,000 miles that needs a new transmission. How much is a transmission? $8,000 for a car that's already 7 years old.
Sure.
That's going to be replaced maybe in this cycle of 12 that we just bought. It's challenging when we're not in control of it. So we are at we fall under their purview as far as how the cars are maintenance. But they do, in light of their low staffing and other things like that, they do a really good job of working with us and keeping the cars running. I don't know if they're using bubble gum or baling wire or duct tape on some of these things. But, we still have 66% of our fleet, and some of these cars are at 140,000 miles. So, and that's not just us, that's a lot of law enforcement agencies in California are under the same.
Sure.
Problems.
And, considering that 33% of the fleet is at the yard, how does that affect patrolling at all? Does that affect performance?
Well, just like Public Works staffing shortages, we
Sure.
have staffing shortages.
Absolutely.
So, on a typical shift where we could be slated to have 13, we might have 9. Our shift minimums vary between 10 and 8, 12 and 8, depending on the time of the day. So sometimes we'll have to partner our officers up. Sometimes, we just make it work. ideally, you'd like to have one officer in a car and have as many officers and cars out there for high visibility, schools, Empire Center. Sometimes we just can't. So the watch commander or the patrol sergeants try to be flexible as far as how we're managing that and staffing it, and we just work with what we got.
I appreciate that. And just, what you saw talk about EV cars, I actually got a chance to speak with Sergeant Tony Abdallah from South Pasadena's Police Department, who's in charge of the EV. He's leading the charge on that, and I completely agree. I mean, the technology is not there right now. The infrastructure isn't, I feel like in Burbank is not there right now. And I drive a Tesla. I can't imagine that being converted to a police vehicle in the state that it's in right now, and for it to function for even 2.5 years, the ways are different. So I completely understand why EVs are definitely a challenge right now, and I know that it's going to take a while for that technology to catch up. But yeah, so I mean, from hearing about what they're going through, is some cars are just sitting on the lot, and because they have a hard time deploying these cars out there. And you're right, safety is a concern. So, I mean, it's something for agencies to think about. But for when you guys have Fords and Chevys, those are pretty much the ones that primarily are being used all throughout. Is that consistent through other agencies all throughout the country, or?
Yeah, there's some agencies that prefer Dodge, like the Highway Patrol has gone to the Dodge Charger for their main patrol fleet.
Sure.
And a lot of that was due to fuel mileage and other issues that the Interceptor Ford was, because it's a larger profile vehicle, it's all-wheel drive, so it got worse gas mileage. But they still have the Ford Interceptors out there, and they're using Chevy Tahoes for their supervisor cars. So they have now 3 cars in their fleet that their techs have to work on.
Sure.
Since we already have the Fords and we have the Tahoes for the canines, our fleet maintenance knows how to work on them. They have the skills and the tools to do what they need to do, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Romick. Mike, go ahead.
Just to follow through, are there any departments that use foreign vehicles, like Toyota?
I don't know. I don't know. Most of the cars that we would use or police departments would use would be what's called pursuit rated. They're special testing. They have heavy duty brakes, different suspension, different alternators, things like that. And there's no foreign cars. I'll call them foreign, even though a lot of Toyotas and Hondas are made in the USA. That do that. You'll see some agencies have specialty, like show cars, like Lamborghinis or things like that, but they're not using them on a daily basis for actual patrol.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, did you have another question? Several? Go ahead.
Several. You were talking a little bit before about the shortage. And it sounded by the numbers that like about 20% of the vehicles, maybe a little more, a little less, are in the shop in any given time. Does that sound right?
It just depends on where they're at in the maintenance, how many they can get out. They're usually taking 2 a day because they want to touch each car once a month. So that's 28 cars. They don't have 28 days in the month because they only work Monday through Fridays. So they're trying to do 2 a day. So if they can get those 2 back, we're out 2 plus whatever is out for excess maintenance or crashes. So right now it's 33% plus. If they take 2 for regular maintenance, it might be a little more.
And if they're fixing dents or whatever, that takes longer if it's going to and out.
Yeah, usually a body shop would be for more extensive damage, like the one picture I had up there where the car crashed into a pole. So
In 2008, the budget was, they extended the cycle on them.
it started in that time period, not specifically that year, because the financial crisis kind of dragged on for.
Did we have the
several
same number of vehicles at that time? Or do
well,
we need more vehicles now?
When I started in 2000, we were slated for 168 sworn officers. It got frozen to 160. They froze 8 spots, and then they cut those spots after the financial crisis. So now we're slated at 160, 161, depending on SRO budgeting. We used to have 29 marked patrol cars, and then we had 1 dedicated to the mall substation. That was an older car that they just kept in the fleet. So 28 has been working for us. Obviously, we're at less than 160 actual working. So do we need more? I mean, we could always use more, but then you have more cars parked when with the 28 that we are using are getting regular use. There's not cars sitting there because we have too many.
Well, given, currently, are there vehicles parked in the garage that are not being used?
Sometimes, yes. When it's busy at shift change, which is at 3 o'clock, you might see 1 or 2 cars down there. But if it's night shift and it's only night shift here, you might see 8 to 10 down there. So there are cars there. They're just depending on the date and time and what's going on. There's a different amount.
When we have a car that's in the garage after a collision, just curious, who pays for the repair?
That's
Do we make the officer who is driving pay for the repairs on a vehicle?
No. It comes out of either Public Works budget or the general fund, as far as I know. I don't know how the billing goes. Maybe the chief can speak to that.
No, you're spot on. You're assuming that the officer was at fault.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, insurance companies will be involved. So you have the city attorney, Public Works, that will be involved in making that vehicle whole.
I just wanted to I've heard of some communities who actually do give the liability to the individual officer instead of their community.
Yeah, understood the question. That is not the case here in Burbank.
When the budget is done, even though they've extended the period of time, does the department receive an annual amount annually? Do they receive an amount annually that goes towards vehicle replacement, or is it done every 5 years and they get a chunk from the city council? Or
That's outside my scope of knowledge. I know that some of the investigation vehicles, like the one I currently have, is slated at a 60-month replacement. It's a 2015 model year, so it's 9 years old. But realistically, it's only got 40,000 miles on it. So I think purchasing kind of takes that into account as what do we need? Does it really need to be replaced? But I don't know that.
So in answering your question, it's a budget question, and we're just finishing up with the city's budget. There's a fund that is specific to vehicles. The allocation is going to come from Public Works, and they're going to do a forecast or scheduling of vehicles, vehicle replacements. We meet with them twice a year as far as the number of vehicles, where they are as replacement and or have that require salvaging. So there is a formula, and it's a formula that works. What happened was, and this was problematic for everybody, was COVID. COVID set everyone back. We waited for vehicles for over 3 years. If you recall, the Met vehicle that is downstairs, that was 3.5 years from date of order to date of delivery. And that vehicle we got from the East Coast. So the supply chain for vehicles and new vehicles, that was very real. It impacted us. We had cities that were outbidding us on vehicles when they came in. And I think by the end of this year, in fact, if you schedule a update on vehicles this time next year, I think it's going to be a different presentation as far as our vehicles, because we'll have the new technology that'll be onboarded between the tough books and the upgraded technology coupled with the Axon systems. It'll be very different. So I don't know if that helps in answering the question.
Chief, I'm not sure I understand. There is an amount that is set aside in the budget?
Not our budget. It is not our budget. So when you look at our budget, there's no vehicle side of it. That all comes out of Public Works. So it's a different fund. So this is the one time I told our police administrator that she could have the night off, and she is screaming at the television right now because she could answer this question. So I won't do that again. So if I can, if the city attorney's permission, if we can do a follow-up expanded explanation as far as vehicles, how they're funded, what fund that comes out of and that process.
No, it would be at a future date, interesting to find out more about that.
Will do.
And a quick example is I was on a board for a condo, and the condo had an elevator and you have to replace it ever so often, every 10, 15, 20 years. And people are charged a fee each year, and that money is set aside for when you need it. So it's as you're using it, you're paying for it, rather than it being a one chunk at the end of the 15 years that all of a sudden you got to be assessed a whole lot of money. So that's where I'm coming from on that. You mentioned something about on our current cars that we do not have readers, and that the new technology will have readers.
We used to have, our full fleet had roof-mounted ALPR, automated license plate reader cameras that was paid for through grant funding, probably 10 to 15 years ago. That grant funding was not permanent. We've tried over the years to replace the technology. The vendor got bought by another vendor that got bought by another vendor. The things fall out of warranty. So a lot of that has just aged out. We still have the 2 canine cars, which are working, and a lot of that is due to it being assigned to one single person, and it's not running 24 hours a day. They only work 4 days a week, and it's not getting driven by multiple people. So those cars actually tend to last quite a bit longer because it's assigned to a single person. So we right now have 2 that actually work, and some that you'll see on there, but they don't work. But when we switch to the Fleet 3, all of the cars will have working license plate reader cameras driving around, which helps in a variety of ways for us.
On the, I'm not sure, I missed something here. On the replacement, is that replacement for all the vehicles all at one time, or is it over a period of time, a couple of years?
It's periodic. Like I said, in the past, it would be every 3 years. So a car, you'd get, say, 5 cars a year, and every year you're getting 5 new cars. So you're replacing portions of the fleet. Like our investigations bureau, we have cars that are supposed to get replaced in 6 years, and now it might be 9, it might be 10. But part of the problem too is with the budget is, as you know, with COVID and inflation, is if they budgeted $40,000 for a car 5 years ago, the cars aren't $40,000 anymore. So that factors into it too. So.
The last question. On the side of on the door of the vehicles,
Yes.
we used to have a triangle with 3 different words on it. And this didn't go back too far, but I noticed it's changed a little bit, and I didn't see, what's on the side of our police vehicles now? It says City of Burbank
It
Police?
says Burbank Police, and then it says on the back in the white stickers, it says respect, integrity, excellence.
Okay,
That's
those are the 3,
yeah,
okay.
That's the,
Okay, thank you.
and that
Thank you
design,
for your presentation
Yes.
this evening, that
All
was
right.
great.
Thank you. Layla, did you have a question?
Just a quick question, more of a summing up, making sure I understand. So, so the challenge, or one of the challenges, it seems like, is not maybe so much the number of cars, but the reliability, which could be of the cars maybe, and so, which could be resolved by newer vehicles. Is that or
they're old and they're
Yeah.
worn out, and the chief can attest to this. I've been beating him up for years about we need to get these cars replaced, and we just could not. And if you're running a piece of equipment past its
Yeah.
estimated service life, it's going to be problematic, and that's what's happened.
Yeah.
But with the 12 cars that we have, supposedly, if everything goes well, we'll be getting a new one every 2 weeks from that 12 that are outfitted and ready to go. That's assuming the technology all works properly, the installation went as it should have.
And those will have the new technology in them.
This will have the Tough Book in
12?
it. It does not have the new front-facing or rear camera because we have not ended that contract yet with Axon. That should be this fall.
Okay.
And part of the problem with that is then we'll have to take those cars out of service to have them replace that certain technology. But the way they've set up the rear portion is they'll be able to take out certain things and just put the new stuff in, and it won't be hopefully a full surgery, just a light, outpatient surgery. So yeah, the cars are old, they're worn out, and I think we're in a good spot now to put that behind us, and hopefully the COVID situation will not come back.
Yeah. Okay. and-
Paul, you-
oh,
oh, go
sorry,
ahead,
Just
go
the
ahead.
last thing. Will the old cars be getting the updated technology as well, or holding off on that because they'll,
We are going to
you know,
hold
be
off on
replaced?
that until the new ones. The new budget cycle, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is July, and that's when we're going to try to order the new Tahoes. Chevy has a very limited order window for police oriented vehicles that they manufacture on a certain schedule, so we're going to try and hit that order window and hopefully get those in a timely fashion. I don't know if you've been to any Chevy dealers. They got a lot of trucks, but not a lot of Tahoes or Suburbans. So I don't know if it's a matter of what they have to make or what they are making, but we could buy a lot of pickup trucks right now, but we don't need them.
Thank you.
Paul, you had one last question?
What year did we go to Tough Books?
We are transitioning to the Tough Books.
Just now.
Starting now. We went to the trunk-mounted CPU. It's a HP, then it was a Dell. It's probably 8.5 by 8.5 by an inch. Back in 2016-ish, 2015-ish. And they've held up for what they are. They're a desktop office PC. They've held up actually pretty good for being out in the heat and the vibration.
I was just thinking that was that technology driven for police specific, or because militarily we had them 20 years ago?
We chose to go with the in-dash mounted screen, which saved a lot of space for the officer. It was also cutting edge at the time. As technology's moved ahead and as we go to the new vendor for the CAD RMS system, the screen in the car is oriented in a portrait. The technology that they use, and it's somewhat problematic with our current software, it's better viewed in a landscape because you get more width. So it's just a fact of what we've had isn't going to work with what we've got going forward. Plus that technology is not supported by the vendor anymore with the in-dash screen. So it gives a lot more space in the cabin of the car than the laptop or the Toughbook, but it's not current or.
I also appreciate your input about the additional wear and tear on the vehicles maintaining it, they have to run. Because when we talk about being used 24/7, now they truly are running 24/7, whether they're moving or not, in order to keep the electronics up, and that's an additional burden on the vehicle and therefore our city. Last but not least, the parking enforcement. I know it's kind of in the division now, but is it possible for those vehicles to eventually go electric? I mean, basically, anything is non-pursuit.
Theoretically, yes. They're using a hybrid Toyota Corolla.
Okay,
They were going to try and go with Priuses, but they could not get
They don't
Priuses,
have enough,
obviously.
yeah.
But they got hybrid Corollas, and they have their own computer system in there, and they have their own license plate reader cameras that are specific to their citation management, site writing technology, which are two. And we still have, as the chief mentioned, 2 parking control officers. We used to have 12. They've either retired out, left the city, gone into other job positions, and we haven't been able to hire behind them. So the contract company, LAS, has got their own vehicles with their own technology, and we hope to increase that to get more coverage for some of these issues that we're having, 3 to 5 parking, 72-hour abandoned vehicles, school issues, permit parking, the whole gamut. It's hard to manage with just 5 people. So hopefully that program will expand, which I think is in the budget cycle to
It
expand
is. If
that.
I go back to the Toughbook, so here's the other challenge that we have, is that for Public Works, when all the design and engineering of technology, there has to be clear paths for airbags. So they come out literally with tape measures to make sure that airbags pass Trump technology. So when we went to the in-dash, that was at the time state of the art. We were the first one to have that, and we thought that would be a good fix. And it was for a short period of time, but technology has moved beyond that. With the tough books and the airbag pass, I think we're going to be in a much better place. The other thing, from just kind of historical perspective, bringing in vendors, multiple vendors to outfit a police car. In the olden days, it was a black and white, they had a radio, and that was pretty much it. Now it takes weeks and weeks to get all the technology onboarded and the lights and all the safety equipment, and it is quite an ordeal. And those vehicles were not designed to carry all that freight and all that technology. So the auto industry is getting better at making vehicles that can accommodate all that technology. And whoever asked about vehicles nationwide, it's also Canada. Remember Canada? Because they typically have Fords and Chevys also. So North America, these are the vehicles that you see.
Just to follow up on that, is the people I worked with were not the most gentle, and the tough book is indestructible. So I'm glad to see that that's coming into the fleet, because I've seen them dropped, I've seen them dusty, and just turn right back on again.
Yeah, we hope that they'll make our people more efficient. They'll be able to take them out of the car and actually do reports at the scene rather than making the drive back to the station, which they have to do now. They can't do anything mobile. The technology will also incorporate mobile phone app that they'll be able to do a lot of their reporting just on the phone itself. So it should be a real game changer for how we operate and how much efficiency we get out of each person. That gives them more time to actually be out and be visible and respond to calls.
I salute your initiative and your ingenuity and creativeness just to make this happen, because obviously like you said, you're working with duct tape and bubble gum, and you have to put it all together with a limited budget and little resources. So thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Great, thank you. No other questions or comments? All right, Lieutenant Saul, thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
and for the
Have a good
presentation
night.
this evening. Thank you.
Appreciate
Have a good
it.
night.
Thank you.
So moving on to item 2 under G is presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the department's policies, statistics, and outcomes of the department's homeless population engagement. This is Sergeant Steve Turner. Sergeant Turner, welcome back.
Good evening, Commissioner. Give me a second here.
That is water.
Now it's business. Now it's business. Good evening, Commission. Sergeant Steve Turner, Public Information Officer for the Police Department. And like was said, today we're going to go over our policies, statistics, and outcomes of the department's homeless population engagement. So straight from our policy, Policy 464, it is the policy of the Burbank Police Department to provide law enforcement services to all members of our community while protecting their rights, dignity, and private property of all persons, including the homeless. Homelessness is not a crime, and members of the department will not use homelessness solely as a basis for detention or law enforcement action. Just last January, myself and some of our esteemed commissioners participated in Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, where they have the Everybody Counts, the homeless count that we did. At the top of the slide, you can see we just got these numbers in. As for 2023, our count was 129, which was actually 135 less than if you look on the left, on the blue bar, there was 264 for 2022. So the chart on the left, the blues is for Burbank, and then the orange is LA County. And again, these numbers here that I'm giving you through our homeless count, as well as the numbers I'm going to reference throughout the rest of this presentation, are estimates, our best estimates on a lot of these. Reported incidents that include our homeless or transient population. Just as an example, all calls for service for 2024 year to date, we've had over 14,000 calls for service into our city. Of those 14,000, 931 were related or as reported homeless. Some of the top incident types involving some of our homeless population is theft, drunk in public, trespassing, vandalism, drug violations, or assaults. Also, with our homeless population, there's a large portion of our homeless population has mental health component to it. As you can see right here in this chart, going over the past couple of years, year to date, we've had 17 5150 holds pertaining to some of these calls for service. Our mental health evaluation team, as you can see, they do most of the heavy lifting on this. They're our main conduit, provide the homeless outreach to those homeless suspected of experiencing mental health illness. They provide case management and they monitor, especially with individuals, high utilizers of our services. They provide that outreach and hook them up with referrals to housing and community-based services, reunification in certain circumstances with family. They conduct welfare checks, and their big goal is to ensure long-term sustained care for some of these individuals. You know, get them the proper assistance they need and keep them in a particular program. Year to date, this year alone, our MET team has contacted 38 unhoused individuals, 33 homeless outreach case management efforts, and 1 encampment abatement. This is a photograph of previous homeless camp abatements they've conducted. And then as far as our patrol officers outside of MET, our officers are encouraged to contact the homeless for purposes of rendering aid, support, and community-oriented policing purposes. You know, prior to the calls, just on their own, when they're conducting their area checks. Their officers should provide homeless persons with resource and assistance information whenever it is reasonable. These officers have this information on hand. It's provided in our roll call rooms. They're current with it. They have brochures, or they'll have business cards to certain programs such as Street Plus, the Safe, down where we have our storage bins, and they have a mobile shower truck that comes there a few days a week, and of course our Burbank Temporary Aid Center. Some additional resources that we have out there that we continue to put out there. Our Burbank Community Development, they have a whole program as well. They work a lot with our MET team. And these are just some of the homeless outreach programs we have, as well as service, food, and hygiene programs that we have here just in our city alone. And it goes on throughout the county and everything else. Again, we have you've heard it not only here at Police Commission, but City Council, some of our other meetings with our 311 app is it's out, it's rolled out, it's a lot more robust. You could have, if you have questions about homelessness, there's an opportunity to utilize that application as well. And that is it for my presentation this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Sergeant Turner. We'll go ahead and open it up to the commission. Romick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Sergeant Turner, thank you so much for that presentation. And, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I serve on the board for Homegate LA. Albert Hernandez is one of my good friends, wonderful CEO. We help, obviously, a lot of families stay off the streets. Curious, I saw the homeless count, there was a huge decrease. And any idea why that happened or how that happened?
I couldn't tell you, it could just be the count that was that night. Hopefully, the good person in me is hopefully they're getting the resources they need. And it fluctuates. If you go back to 2017 and it went down in 2018 and then back up, shot back up again in 2019. So hopefully we see that decrease and keep it that way.
Thank you.
Paul, go ahead.
My question was going to be along the same lines of what are we doing right, basically. But, and I do think that it goes back to my original statement about being commissioners and police and fire day, which is communication. Because Albert has been a resource for my wife as a teacher to help students for families who are in difficulty. and we have a very reactionary community. So I appreciate your input and to let people know that if you need help, it's there.
And absolutely, and a big kudos to our Met team. I mean, they do a lot of the work on that end with us. Our city's community development, and it's everything. It's all that. It's all the messaging, working together, the nonprofit groups that are expanding, and it's just getting the words getting out a little bit more. It's front page news. It has been for the past several years here in this region, Southern California. So
I just think there's a lot of cities that are trying to kick the can down the road, and I think that Burbank has found solutions. And the solutions have come through cooperation. So I just wanted to reinforce my thank you on that.
Yeah.
Lily, you want to go ahead?
Just wondering, to the point about how the homeless count numbers went down in Burbank, I'm wondering, did you notice if there was a similar decrease in the LA County numbers or other kind of neighboring cities at all? There's like Glendale being maybe more similar than LA.
It's,
right,
I'd have to get you we literally we had a call. They typically don't have the numbers out this quick.
Mm-hmm.
We called today. Kelly actually did me a huge favor and got me these numbers for the 2023 count.
Gotcha.
So I'd have to comparatively and see how they did in the county or neighboring cities
Yeah,
and
just
see how they
interested.
did.
Yeah, and I think I don't remember, but the number of calls you said was about 931 that related to homelessness in some way. Has that gone down too compared to other years, or up, or about the same? Or just wondering, because that may be another way to sort of check the homelessness
It
count
is what I
numbers.
can tell you right now. So that's representing of the 14,000 calls for service we had. That's about 6 to 7%, I think, of our calls for service had a homeless component to it. Historically, it's anywhere from 10 to 15%. So I'd have to look. We'd have to expand 2024 the rest of the year, see how it looks. It may go up here now during the summer as opposed to different parts of the year. But
so far it sounds a little
historically,
lower.
it's about 10 to 15% of our calls.
Also, okay, all right, thank you.
Mike, go ahead. Oh, Lila, do you have another one? Okay, Mike, go ahead.
I'm just curious, you had the numbers of homeless up there. How do the police identify homeless when they're in contacting a person?
Well, when they're contacting the person, obviously they tell them when they're trying to get their information as a result of the call, and they're trying to, they'll tell them they're currently in between places, they're transient, they don't have a home, or whatever the situation is usually how we determine.
If somebody doesn't want to say they're homeless, you just,
They'll tell you.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, they'll tell you.
there was a tax that was put on by the county for homeless, and I believe Burbank sends funds into the county for homeless purposes. Does our police department get any funds back from that tax?
That's about, yeah.
Does our community get any money back from the tax?
So
I'm just,
that's a question that that needs to be asked to city council. There is a formula. The city of Burbank does get a very modest percent. It's not dollar for dollar on that tax, because it would be $10+ million, and it's not even close to that. So that goes to the general fund. The city of Burbank has a homelessness plan and programs, so typically that goes into that fund. None of that money comes to the police department. It will go to that fund or the general fund.
good, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, too.
You got it.
Ann, do you have a question?
No, it's a quick comment. Thank you so much. It's good to hear that the homeless count is going down. Where do we go from here? I mean, obviously, as been said, some good things have been happening.
We continue what we're doing. We get the messaging out. We continue working with these some of these local nonprofits. We're in the process of expanding our mental health evaluation team. All of it, learn from what the data's given us, and keep putting that to good work.
Do we ever hear back when the team goes out, especially, and deals one-on-one with a homeless individual, do we get back from them information that helps?
I'm sure we do from time. I think our team could speak a little bit more to that. You know, our patrol officers, when they go out, it's obviously, you know, it's brief. It's in the moment of the time of that call. Our mental health evaluation team is more of the prolonged, long-term, sustained care, case management of some of those individuals, and they've had some success stories in the past.
All right, thank you.
Mike, you had a question?
So for the last calendar year, there were 931 incidents. I think that's the number that was on the first slide.
No, so for year-to-date so far in 2024, year-to-date, we've, of our 14,000 calls for service, over 14,000 calls for service, 931 of those calls have been, had a homeless component to it.
Of those incidents, is there any breakdown which could have involved a misdemeanor versus felony?
I'm sure there is.
The type of crime?
Yeah, I'm
That's
sure
what
there
I'm
is,
asking.
depending, even if there's an arrest behind it, sometimes it's advisal, sometimes it turns into something more of like a 5150, sometimes it turns into, yeah, there's all kinds of various outcomes with any one of those calls.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mike, go ahead.
Back to ID a little bit. Do we have any idea? I understand they're homeless, but are they homeless from Burbank when we are in contact mostly, or is it? Do they give any general area, like a community name or something? There's our friend. How are you?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Officer Kyles. I'm with the Burbank Mental Health Team. So as far as the last question, it really just depends. We do have a lot of our unhoused population that has lived in Burbank. They were born and raised. When we talked about why our numbers have decreased, a lot of times those are the passerbys. So some of those individuals, they will come to Burbank, they will ask for resources, and then when we contact them, some of them want to be relocated, some of them accept the housing, so that's why that number has decreased. But the consistent number of unhoused individuals that we have within the city have been long-term. So those are the ones that are kind of resistant, service resistant. So it takes a longer time to actually get them to commit to taking the resources. So that's why that number is kind of like fluctuating. We do have a lot of families that contact us from out of state that will tell us that their loved one is out of, that they're living there, and then we try to work with them to get them sent back home. But I would say for most of our homeless population right now, most of them were born and raised in Burbank.
Interesting.
Layla, go ahead.
Thank you.
Sort of related to what you're saying, folks that live in Burbank, I have seen and heard personally from people, I think in both just in, maybe rental housing situation where the rent's going up and things like that, but also especially people in a domestic violence situation who are saying, I want to leave this situation, but I need housing, or I'm, need affordable housing and all that kind of stuff, supportive housing. So I'm just wondering, I know we've talked about that here in the past. So just sort of confirming that, maybe a lot of these same resources, are those also provided to folks on those type, who are involved in those type of situations where
Yes,
the department's
so
called?
we work closely with victims' rights. So they actually come out and advocate for these individuals. They get them housing. They get them connected to different types of services that they need. So when we find out what the individual situation is, then we try to refer them to a program that's specifically for them. So if it is domestic violence related, we'll refer them to a program for that. If it's families, we have Home Again LA. Veterans, we have VPAN. So whatever the situation may be, we'll refer them to that program.
And if somebody were in that situation, could they call, and sometimes people in this situation don't want to involve law enforcement, it's a sensitive situation. Could someone call the non-emergency line to the department and ask about housing resources? In that sense, I know it wouldn't be maybe, that's, there may be other numbers to call too, but is that something folks could do, or would that necessarily then mean there would be sort of more law enforcement involvement in their domestic violence situation?
No, so we actually get a lot of people who call our non-emergency line, and then the dispatch will transfer it to us. And so if they need help, we talk to them on the phone, and if they tell us they don't want police contact, then we understand that, we provide them services, and then that's why my partner is also available, so she can also guide them
Okay,
if they
great.
don't want to talk to
Okay,
police.
that's great, thank you.
I also realize that you only have access to the data that you have. So I'm thinking about 211. I'm thinking about other resources as well. I'm thinking about the libraries for that matter, because the libraries across the county and in Burbank are one of the resources that folks who are experiencing homelessness will utilize for services. Kind of a data question, and I'm curious about this one. Is it possible within the department, I'm not doing a data request, but I'm wondering if it's possible within the department to be able to do some sort of a sort or a query you had identified, Sergeant Turner, the number of folks that they self-identified as being unhoused, experiencing homelessness. I'm wondering if there's a way to do some sort of a data run because I'm assuming that some of those contacts are probably multiple contacts with the same individual. And then I'm also wondering if there's a way to differentiate folks that, as Officer Kyles was mentioning, are long-term unhoused in Burbank versus moving through Burbank in different spaces. And I'm wondering how that number would compare to the homeless count numbers that we put together as well. If there's a way internally in the department to do that.
It's it's something I can absolutely work with our crime analyst with, and then, all right.
Hi, I'm Captain Dennis Cremens, and I supervise one of the crime analysts. So the short answer is probably not,
Okay.
to be very honest with you. We don't label people because they're homeless.
Right.
What we will, even these numbers you have to understand are very imprecise. As you well know, those of you who participated in the homeless count, it's not a precise methodology.
Yeah.
So there are guesstimates, they do fluctuate. And on top of that, even when officers identify something that's associated with being homeless, they may or may not remember to code that on their daily field activity report. Sometimes it's found out you have somebody creating a disturbance, or we have a man down, or we have somebody drunk in public, or we have a theft suspect. We don't. Sometimes then we say, okay, where do you live? I'm homeless. So, but we don't track, we don't label people based upon that. Now, the MET team, if they find individuals they contact on a regular basis, certainly they can reach out and deal with that situation. But as a practical matter, I think it would be very, very labor intensive and probably not worth the time and effort we put into it, to be very honest with you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I'm wondering, anecdotally, this is almost a pushback against the larger system as well, not way beyond Burbank,
Yeah.
because you're right, the homeless count numbers they're not accurate.
They're not.
And there's a lot that goes into that. I've been involved, and thank you again to the city and the department and to Sergeant Turner. This will be, I can't remember how many years I've been doing this, but I've been doing it as a ride along with the department to do that count. And we get an opportunity to ask a lot of additional questions and explore additional issues related to engaging folks who are unhoused in Burbank. I'm wondering anecdotally, and just again, this is just within the department, I don't want to ask for this data myself because I'm wondering if there might be some value in anecdotally reviewing the numbers within the department, the 931, and any kind of, we'll call them frequent flyers or multiple contacts, versus the folks that Officer Kyles and the MET team is familiar with. So that way we can start to get a sense as to whether how accurate is the count for Burbank, or how consistent is the count for Burbank. That's the suggestion. I don't want to do any deeper analysis of it other than that, but I'm just wondering if that might be useful so we can get a more accurate picture, or a better picture of the consistent number of folks who are unhoused in Burbank.
Just a second, we probably could, we devote a significant amount of resources to it,
Yeah.
and then my question would be to what end?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know we have a better number, and what? We're still going to deal with the situation as it's brought to our attention, because we're more reactive in that, legally, and the Constitution makes it such.
Right.
So, we try to be proactive where we can to offer services and to get people off the street, get them housed, and get them the services they need. And a lot of people we do encounter multiple times Officer Kyles and her colleagues can give you names off the top of their head, and people who are service resistant, we go out numerous times, and that becomes an issue too, as far as time and resources expended on it, and people just don't want it, sometimes to their own detriment.
Yeah, I understand. Mike, go ahead.
I would just think that the pursuit of numbers is not the right direction to go, because I just look at it from my point of view here in Burbank. If the person is homeless in Burbank on Tuesday night and Wednesday they're on Forest Lawn Drive, and they're in LA now, numbers won't tell you what's really happening.
Yeah,
So anecdotally, and this goes to your point, Sergeant Turner and I were talking today, and we, anecdotally, we think that the homeless population probably mirrors the general population of Burbank, where you've got residents and people come in during the day, and then they go back to where they are, which may not be within the city boundaries of Burbank.
Right. Agreed. And again, you're right. It's the data is not the point. It's the strategies around addressing homelessness, and it's really about building the relationships with these individuals when we've got frequent contact with them. Paul, go ahead.
Do we know how these numbers coordinate with Home Again LA, the number of families, our BTAC, the number of personnel they're working with?
I don't understand the question.
I mean, how many families are being housed or having their situation being improved through Home Again LA, and also do we know how many people are being served on a daily basis?
We
at
can
BTAC?
refer them. I think that's probably a better question for those agencies to talk about their own statistics.
I can chime in on that. Last year, I think it was over 640 families, but with Home Again LA, it's a little different though. I mean, you're not dealing with the chronic homeless, you're dealing with families who are on the verge of homelessness or have just become homeless. So, I mean, there's a criteria to meet to qualify.
They have their own
programs.
criteria, each
Absolutely.
agency.
Yep.
No bad credit, no drug history, no violent record, anything like that. So it's very specific on what families get served, but does still serve a great purpose.
We offer people, here's several services you can avail yourself to. We can't force them to do it, and we don't track their numbers.
I just wanted to offer, for Sergeant Turner, I wanted to offer one additional resource. You provided the screen that's got a number of different resources that are used to hand out to the community and to help folks that are experiencing homelessness. One of them that I didn't see on there, it's something called LA Hop, la-hop.org, and it's actually a real-time, if you will, tracker that's used that will help deploy other teams that work with the county, with the city and with the county. Well, with the county in this case, that will go out. There's home teams, there's other groups that will be able to go out based on that information. So I just wanted to offer that as an additional resource.
No, definitely, and I appreciate it. And that was a small sampling of several of these agencies that are out here working with our homeless population. So definitely.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. With that, Sergeant Turner, Officer Kyles, Captain Kremens, thank you all. Moving on to item number 3, update, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on the deployment of the new mental health evaluation team. And we're going to bring back Detective Kyles. It is. We're over here calling you off. Actually, I think you introduced yourself as Officer Kyles. So it's Detective Kyles and DMH licensed clinical social worker Veronica Mealy. Excellent. Welcome.
Hi. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Veronica Mealy, a licensed clinical social worker with the Department of Mental Health, and I've had the pleasure of being on the Burbank Mental Health Evaluation Team since September of last year. I've worked for DMH since 2016. And my prior DMH experience includes working in the probation, juvenile halls, and camps. In addition to that, I also have prior experience working in adult inpatient psychiatric units for many years, and also on the crisis intervention team in the adult state prison system. I am bilingual in Spanish and have been a lifelong Burbank resident and plan to continue being. So I'm happy to be here and happy to serve the community. Thank you.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Detective Kyles with the Burbank Met Team. And so today we'll be going over our new mental health evaluation vehicle. So for as far as the timeline, in 2021, the City Council approved the funding for the vehicle, and the vehicle was actually ordered. The vehicle arrived late 2023, and then it was fully deployed March of 2024. Some of the vehicle's highlight is that it is a plain white vehicle with no police emblems. We have a safety compartment in the back, which is basically a metal storage bin where we have drawers. Some of the things that we keep in our drawers are we have clothing, socks, we have anxiety gadgets for when we go on calls and we work with students or we work with individuals who may need a little extra support, and then just additional resources in the back of our car. I think the most important component is that the vehicle is, it has half of a cage in the back, so that way if an individual is being placed on a hold or taken to the hospital, a loved one can sit in the back with them and help support them. We have the latest technology that we talked about today, so we have the Tough Book. It is outfitted with lights and sirens that we only use in case of emergency. So if we're responding to maybe like a suicidal subject, we can get there actually a lot faster than what we would in our normal vehicle. And yeah, so this is, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the vehicle in the back, but this is just some of our pictures. That is the half cage that we talked about. It's actually a lot more spacious than a regular police car. I'm about 5'10". When I sit in the back, my knees don't touch, so that's actually like really helpful. And then, so these are some of our case studies. So in February, Patrol actually asked to use the vehicle because there was an elderly adult who was reported missing. They found the individual, but that individual did not feel comfortable riding in a police vehicle. So Patrol went back to the station, picked up the Met vehicle, and went to the individual's location, and they were more comfortable getting in the vehicle, so they were able to take that individual back home. In March, we responded to a home where a juvenile was experiencing a mental health crisis. We determined that that juvenile met the criteria to be taken to the hospital. The juvenile was very resistive, did not want to go into a police car, and then once we informed them that we did have the Met vehicle that was plain, they were a little bit more willing to go. And then lastly, in April, we did go to the schools, evaluate a student, and took a student from the school. So since the full deployment of the vehicle, we have taken 2 adults and 4 students, or 4 juveniles. Thank you.
Thank you. I got questions, but I want to open it up to everybody else first. Maybe I've got the only questions. All right. So I appreciate the fact that this has been deployed. Out of curiosity, with the youth that have been transported, I know that there's the compartment for the safety of the individual that's being transported, but the other side of the back seat, it's open for if a family member or a loved one or a teacher or something like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's worked? Has there been somebody else in the vehicle when you've been transporting the youth, and how has that worked out?
So we have offered, but no one has accepted the offer as of yet.
Okay.
And a lot of times it was because the individual was like highly upset, and it seemed that if the parent did go, it would kind of make the situation worse. So no one has accepted, but it has been offered.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just as when I went to the NoCal conference in November in Chicago, this was literally the only thing that they brought up that we didn't already have implemented, and I knew it was coming, so I'm glad to see it's here, because this is obviously something that's being done nationally, and unfortunately, because of the supply chain, it took us a while, but we're up to date. Thank you.
Layla, go ahead.
You had mentioned that maybe the person in crisis was, offered the unmarked car, the new vehicle, and then they were more receptive, and so that vehicle was brought from the station. Does that vehicle just go out on calls just in the first place anytime, or do you usually, use a regular patrol car, like for the initial contact, or how to,
So it's
always
assigned
work
to
like
us, but if we are not using the car, Patrol can come and pick the car up if they need it.
Okay, so if you were available, are you usually in that new vehicle now?
Yes.
It's just when you're not available and a regular patrol car responds?
Yes.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Ann?
Just a question I was going to ask, actually, because, well, I saw the vehicle and we got a tour and it was great, and I really applaud the detail to avoiding the stigma of having to place somebody in that car. So I think that's wonderful. But following up on your question, if you have to go back, is there ever, like, if a student is being taken from school on a 5150, the white car doesn't just come, right? Your vehicle does not just automatically come. It has to be called if necessary.
So a lot of the schools call us personally to come and evaluate a student. If we're not in the office, they will ask patrol to come out, and then once we hear the call, we will follow up. So once we got the new vehicle and that it actually has an MDT in it, we're actually able to keep up with the calls a lot better than what we previously would. So that's been helpful. So if we hear a call at a school, we automatically just go. But
Okay.
patrol, if they arrive first, they're there first, and then we take over.
Right, because I could see where your vehicle would be more beneficial to getting somebody to feel not only comfortable, but actually leaving.
Yes.
Okay,
And then a lot of the times, we work with the schools. We have protocols where somebody will come out through the back. We make sure that the hallways are clear, so nobody actually sees us.
Right, great, thank you.
Mike, go ahead. Mike Owen.
A little off topic, but when you do transport a person and you transport them to a facility, what's the wait now for you guys at that facility before you come back to Burbank?
So it really just depends. I would say last week we transported a student and we were there for 10 minutes. We've transported students to West Covina, and with traffic alone, it was probably an hour and 30 minutes, but the wait time, we were probably there an hour. So it's really hit and miss.
What about adults?
For adults, it's about the same. So we've taken someone to Glendale Memorial and we were in and out in 30 minutes. We've taken individuals to all of you, and we've been there for 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours.
Thank you.
Was that a pointing in my direction? I had worked at all of you at one point in time. And for clarification, was it the psychiatric emergency room or the mental health urgent care at all of you that you had the delay?
So it was the psych ER.
Okay.
But again, that's
Yeah.
hit and miss too, because sometimes we've been there 2 hours. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Which is really fast.
Thank you, and thanks, Mike. Mike, go ahead.
Quick question is, do we share this vehicle with other communities?
No, so it's strictly for our Burbank Police Department. Glendale, they have their own vehicles. They have Tahoes, and their MET teams are each assigned one.
And I'm going to go out on a limb outside of the vehicle for a moment. Piggybacking on Ann, when the MET team goes to a school, for example, or to a client, are there uniforms worn?
Yes, so this is how I arrive, and that's how she arrives.
Okay.
And then
Come as you are.
And then patrol, they're in their regular patrol uniform.
Great. I'm just curious if we seem to be concerned about the identity of the vehicle, but the identity of the officer or the responding personnel, if that has any issue at all, or does it need to be for the display of authority?
So I think the most concerns for the students are being seen walked out to a police car and placed in the back. A lot of times, like I said, the school will make sure that students aren't around, the hallways are cleared, bells, everybody's cleared out before we walk students out, and the students don't have an issue with that. It's when their peers are around and they see that they're
People looking at them.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Romit, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Just about the vehicle itself, kind of tying back to our first agenda item about motor vehicles. So is this like a regular, like other patrol cars have to run all day? Do you have to leave them on all the time? And in regards to like, do they run all day or?
So it does have the ability where we can leave it running. We don't leave it running if we come back to the station, but if we're out in the field, we do leave it running, so that way the computer stays on, and then if we have to go to the next call, it's ready.
Okay, great.
Paul, go ahead.
Because it's a newer vehicle, does the reboot up time, is it faster than the other vehicles?
I would say yes for now.
So I know there was discussion of expanding and having a second MET team. So the 2 officers and 2 clinicians in Burbank. Will they be? Will there be? Is there a plan for 2 vehicles?
So if I can step in, Detective, you don't mind, do you?
No, sir,
No,
go
okay.
right ahead.
So the plan is that it would be a shared vehicle, and that we would have a 6-day a week deployment. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Right.
That's the conceptual model. That's the best case scenario. That is still a bit of a journey. We are still working with your colleagues at DMH, and that journey continues. If I can take a moment to introduce Ashley. Sudbrook is going to replace Detective Kyles when she moves over to detective. So Ashley is in training right now. Just say hey.
Hi, Commissioner. Sorry. I wasn't expecting that. I'm still on patrol right now, but hopefully next week I'll be shadowing once a week to at least get my feet wet and
Great.
start learning the process.
Thank you. Welcome to the team.
And then the last part about this vehicle, I can't overstate the journey this has been. And it's been enormously frustrating. So it started in July 1, 2021. And it was setback after setback, but we kept grinding and grinding. We had the model, conceptually, everything together, and just the setbacks from the purchasing process. And when we did end up getting it, it still took 6 weeks to be relocated from the East Coast to the West Coast, and then you had to do the conversion modifications and all of that. So I think it's been a success. Our Met folks had input as far as the design and what they wanted. And I'm pleased to hear that in the locker that's back there, there's stuff that they would use, supplies that they would use that would help managing someone who is experiencing a mental health episode. But the journey, I can't overstate, the journey was a very painful journey, and now it's time to move forward.
Fantastic. I'm curious, Lieutenant Stoll was talking earlier about some sort of a vehicle competition where law enforcement vehicles are entered into competition around design and everything. I'm wondering if you would consider entering this vehicle at some point in that local
Yeah, that was
competition.
COPS West, so that's like where all the vendors come together.
Right.
And that vehicle at that time was the state of the art.
Okay.
And it was identified as the, for the region, it got the Best Police Vehicle Award.
Right.
So moving forward, if there is an opportunity, certainly that they would look at it, but it's primarily for black and whites.
Right.
And so, but we would certainly
Great.
showcase that vehicle.
That's part of the reason I want you to showcase that vehicle, is to show alternative response options.
Absolutely.
If I can make a recommendation as well, and this is from experience from my day job and from other locations as well. If the opportunity comes to wrap the vehicle or do something like that, don't. Please don't. You want it is plain and is what's the word, Mike? Innocuous. There we go. As innocuous as possible. But it looks like a fantastic vehicle. I'm looking forward to hearing more stories about how it's worked. Hopefully, I'm looking forward to hearing about how loved ones and family members and community members that are associated with the individual that's being detained and transported are able to participate in that process as well. So, thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Mealy.
Mealy.
I'm going to get this right. And welcome, Detective Kyles. Congratulations and thank you. And Ashley, what was your last name?
Sudbrook.
Sorry.
It's Sudbrook.
Sudbrook,
Yes.
Sudbrook. So, I'm not, and I don't have my glasses on. So, Officer Sudbrook?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to item G4, which is general announcements by the police chief, brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department. Chief, welcome.
Oh, thank you. And this will be brief because there's really not much to report out, but there's a couple things. So today we did have Coffee with a Cop, and Commissioner Elman, thank you for participating and recognizing the venue and the folks that we were able to engage with. So the first time we did it that I can recall at the Empire Center, and it was a success. We have some graduations coming up, July 3rd and July 19th at Rio Hondo and Sheriff's Academy. On August 6th, I know we're way early on this, but it'll be National Night Out. That'll be Tuesday, August 6th, the first Tuesday of August. And the last thing is that we're going to get some officers recognized for the MAD Awards. That's Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and that's going to be June 23rd. It is not open to the public. It's ceremonial for the involved officers regionally, and it's they are recognized, and it's a big deal for the officers that will be recognized. And that's all I have to report out.
Chief, thank you. I appreciate that.
You get it.
All right. So with that, we're going to go into item H, which is introduction of agenda items for future meetings. And we have a number of items that are currently on the dashboard. So we had approved these items, but we haven't put them on actually, let me back up for a minute. I'm looking at this. Sherry, help me out. Have these items been approved or have they just been recommended? Because I'm looking where it says. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So we have recommended two items for June, which is the year in review and school bike and traffic safety. And we're dark in June. We're dark in June, yes, because of Juneteenth, we're dark in June. Okay, so we're actually looking into July already, which I realized, we need to, were there items that we wanted to make sure that we were talking about addressing in June? I just thought about this. We were talking about making sure that we got some items in advance of the school year. We want to make sure we address them in a timely manner. So July is, okay, so July is okay, then we'll get that. So what we have is we have two recommendations on the dashboard. One is the year in review, the second is the school bike and traffic safety. And then items that we have that we've approved but we haven't set a date are the presentation and discussion of the city's 2035 general plan and how it relates to the Burbank Police Department, update on AB 2147, the Freedom to Walk Act, and also presentation and discussion on an update of the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan report. I'd actually like to make a recommendation because it is 2024 right now. We have not agendized with a date the update on the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan report, and I'm wondering, I'd like to open it up to see if the commission is still interested in pursuing that, because we haven't agendized that. We've just been carrying that over multiple times. So I wanted to open that up to get some if that's okay. I wanted to open that up to get some feedback on whether we want to keep that on, because it's actually an agendized item, and we would have to actually make a motion and second to remove that from the agenda. Paul?
Would it be appropriate for that to be in August prior to our joint meeting with the city council, or do you think by that time it's obsolete?
So what we would do then is we should take that as a recommendation to leave that on there, because then what we'll do is we'll bring that up. Actually, theoretically, we could agendize something for an August meeting now. I want to make sure we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves.
Well, that's correct. We can do that.
Okay.
So I'm thinking even the Freedom to Walk Act, the school safety and those play right into going back to school, so I think they'd be perfect for July.
Okay.
And then the presentation on that would be a great prelude to meeting with the city council.
So I like your thinking. So let's go ahead and move in that direction a little bit. So if we can go ahead and work through the agenda with the items. Let's talk about the items that are here and how to place those, and then we'll open it up for additional agenda items after that. Does that seem reasonable? Okay. So Mike, go ahead.
I have a question on the first future. The presentation, is that presentation, are we thinking that's going to be a representative from our police department or from the city manager's office?
So if you can clarify for me, you said presentation on which item?
The first future.
First few,
On the city's 2035.
the presentation discussion on the city's 2035 general plan and how it relates to the Burbank Police Department. Well, that would be, the way it's written, it's how it relates to the police department. So are you asking whether it would be somebody from the police department that would make that presentation, or somebody from outside of the police department that would make that?
City manager's
The
office.
city manager's office. That's a good question. For our purview here, we.
Can I?
Yeah.
I was the one who introduced that because that is a, an item that this city manager's office and city council were looking at for the future. Is that what does 2035 look like?
Okay.
And I think it was on a Tuesday, and then the next night, that's what I was thinking is that, hey, that would be something that the police commission may had want to discuss.
Okay.
So it would be, the question would be to us is that, okay, today, if you have your crystal ball, what does law enforcement in Burbank look like in 2035? So just get provocative. Are we going to have robots? Are we going to have kiosks? Are we going to have all electric vehicles? Are we going to have flying carpets? How does that look? And so it's just kind of a brainstorming session, a conceptual brainstorming session.
Okay.
So it would be from us, and I would probably defer that to a working group to come up with something provocative to discuss with you guys.
Okay. Okay. So does that help provide
That sounds
clarification,
good.
Mike? Okay. Great.
That would, couldn't that be great as a follow-up to the 2023, 2025 strategic plan?
That does make sense. So it sounds, and again, we have to do formal.
Twice in one meeting now, so.
It's okay. We will post that recording. So that makes sense. And again, we have to vote on these, but kind of using a consensus model. That I'm looking at nods around the room that it makes sense to leave that on the future items, the 2035 general plan. Leave it out as a future item, but don't set it as a date until we actually have the presentation on the 2023 to 2025.
I think it could be a follow-up to the 23, 25 on the same night.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
those are two of the August, and the first two are July, and those two are August.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start to walk through. And again, Sherry, we don't have any trainings that we think are coming up. No? Okay, perfect. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Mike, and then Mike.
I think also considering the 2035 general plan and how it relates to the BPD, I also brought this up earlier.
Okay.
And one of the things was I was interested in terms of the 2035 has specific goals in terms of housing. And if you have a larger population in the city, what are the needs of the department to service that larger population?
I remember that. Okay, thank you for that. So here's what we're going to do is let's go ahead and start with we're dark in June. So if we can go ahead and start with the July agenda. Let's go ahead and start with agendizing items for July. So we're looking for motion seconds and.
School bike traffic safety for July.
Okay, so we have a motion for school bike and traffic
I'll
safety
second that.
update, and Romick is seconding that. All in favor? Actually, we want to.
Discussion?
Let's open it up for brief discussion. Go
I
ahead.
would just like to add to it if we can, I was interested in bringing forward, since we've had contracted parking enforcement, I like, and it's been close to a year of having them, if we can kind of have a little bit report of what they've done and see if we can move them more into enforcement around schools at specific times.
So to clarify, the motion is to have a presentation on school bike and traffic safety from the department as it relates to enforcement, parking enforcement, safety-related issues with the new school year. Are we good with that?
No, absolutely.
Okay, so that's the motion, which incorporates the parking enforcement piece, and we've got the second. Any other questions or discussion for clarification?
Just for clarification. I thought the ad hoc subcommittee was going to report out on talking to principals and stuff. So
That's-
I don't know if this is the same item or you're going in a totally different direction from a presentation from the department. So I just want to clarify what you're looking to.
Yeah, so Paul, I think you phrased it as a presentation from the department on this. I think you did. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It's pretty much, yes, it's a status.
Okay.
And to, hopefully from there can come recommendations. I like Mike Elman's suggestion of including parking enforcement because we need to shine a light on the fact that that's needed.
Okay, so Sherry, I appreciate the clarification comment. I'm with it. I'm still with you on that one. So the motion is for a presentation from the department on school bike and traffic safety issues, including parking enforcement. And yeah. And the presentation is coming from the department. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other clarification on that?
And it's specific to schools or just in general? Because that's a very, very, so schools.
This is schools. This is around schools. Okay, so we've got a motion, second. Any other clarification? So all in favor? Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous, and that's for July.
Just pointing out too that at our previous meeting, we had said that the school, traffic safety subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee,
Right.
was going to present back themselves
Yep.
in August.
So
that
they're going to present back in August?
Yes.
Okay.
On kind of how did the
Okay, so
start
let-
of school go?
So
By then
hold,
the school year will have started.
yeah, hold that thought for a minute,
Yeah.
because what we're going to do is we're going to try to take care of that one as well right now. So we've got that for the July agenda. Do we have any other presentations that we would like? Again, looking at the future items, do we want to put any of those on the July agenda? Which two?
Two that we've already, I'm sorry.
We've only established one so far.
The second being update on the Freedom to Walk Act.
That- Okay, so then there's two more that we're looking at. One, so we were just talking about the strategic plan report. That's the one we were spending time with. We actually haven't talked about the Freedom to Walk Act at all. Is an agenda item yet, other than it being on here. So let's stick with the thinking with what the chief was saying a moment ago is, do we have a motion for the final future item, the presentation and discussion on an update of the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan report? We're looking
I have a
for,
motion for that for August.
okay. So there's a motion to do the presentation on an update on the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan report for August. Do we have a second for that? Mike seconds that, okay. So any discussion or comment on that? All in favor? Raise of hand, say aye.
Aye.
Can we count him? He wait,
Take him out because he's not voting, so I'm
Okay.
left the die.
all right.
Abstain.
All right, perfect. Any opposition? Okay, so it's unanimous with the exception of Mike Chapman, who left the dais for that moment. All right, so that is two items for July. No. Oh, we approved, we did
One
it for
July,
August?
One for August. we've
Okay,
approved.
so we're doing August then. All right.
And
So what we're going to do is that means that I'm thinking that we're going to kick the presentation on the 2035 plan that we were discussing. We're going to kick that even further. And I hesitate to even entertain that one for an agenda item because we still have the joint meeting with the city council in September. So it's not, I'm not exactly comfortable with agendizing things for October and further right now.
no, I would think that would be a follow-up, another, that would be the second item in August because the actual strategic plan would be a precursor to our view of the future.
So okay, so Chief, I want to come back to you for a moment. The thought is to do both of them on the same night? Or was the thinking to do the presentation discussion on 2023 to 2025 in one meeting, and then a future meeting, do the 2035 piece that you were discussing?
Yes, what you
Okay.
just said.
Okay,
If that's the chief's recommendation, I agree.
Yeah.
I'll go.
all right. So we're just going to leave the 2035 plan alone for now, and we're not going to agendize that yet, other than leave it on the paper. Is that correct?
But prior to
Like I said, until we find out what happens.
Okay, and I appreciate Mike's comment of we need to do that prior to 2035 if we can.
So the other thing I would ask to consider is that a follow-up. We kind of left it kind of open or unanswered as far as the funding for vehicles. So our police administrator will be available to provide clarity. It's not only how the vehicles are acquired, maintenance, all of that. It would be kind of a tutorial of that budget. It's a different fund, rather. So if we can put that on the agenda for July to be a follow-up for.
Let me turn to our council on that one because I want to give you the flexibility and the opportunity to design that presentation however you see fit, but because the chief has the ability to add things to the agenda as well, and as opposed to the commission making that motion, do we want to give you the flexibility?
Give me that power.
You've got it.
Okay, but I'm giving you a heads up that
Okay.
I'm going to include
Perfect.
that because it will complete the presentation. Still put a lot of time
Okay.
and work in that presentation, and we just need to wrap it up. So
Okay.
thank you for that.
Perfect. So we've got the flexibility there. So add that wherever and however you see fit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are we've already selected August for the 2023 to 2025 plan. We've heard that the idea is to save the 2035 general plan discussion to a subsequent meeting. So we'll leave that in the future items right now. So then we have the AB 2147 Freedom to Walk
Make
Act.
a motion to include that with July.
Okay, so we have a motion for July for an update on AB 2147 Freedom to Walk Act. Do I have a second? Second from Romick. Any discussion or comments? Okay, so all in favor of adding that to the July agenda? Show of hands or say aye. Any opposition? Okay, it's unanimous, Sherry. So that one is July. And let's see, so we've got, I'm going to go ahead and put this one in because this is one of my favorites because we can't do it in June now. The year in review to take so I'd like to make a motion that we hold a year in review discussion by the commission during the meeting on reviewing how the performance and the functioning, the topics, not a discussion of the topics, but a discussion of the range of topics and procedures that we've used this last year doing this in the July meeting. A motion?
I think that's a great idea because if there's a follow-up, we have August prior to go to the council.
Great, so we're looking for a second. Layla seconds. Any discussion?
How do you do
Mike?
a year in review when the year hasn't ended?
Well, we did it a year ago, June. So this is reviewing everything that we've done this last year.
So we're going by.
Our year pretty much runs July to July.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because June, we're dark in June.
It's just when I hear a year, I expect it's like 2024.
Yeah, no, fiscal year. So we've got a motion, we've got a second. Any other discussion or comments? All in favor? Aye, or show of hands? Any opposition? No opposition? It's unanimous as well. So we'll be doing that in July. And we're holding the future item. Okay, any other agenda? So right now for July, we have, I'm just reading it in the order that is on the paper. We've got the year in review. We've got the update on AB 2147, the Freedom to Walk Act. We have the school bike traffic safety update. There is one more that we're missing that I'm aware of. The ad hoc committee reporting out. So do we have a motion for that? Motion to,
have the school safety ad hoc committee report to the commission.
okay, we have a motion
Do it in July or August.
in July? We had it for August? We haven't agendized it yet. So are we July or August?
I would say August because it would give us the opportunity to say what was accomplished.
All right. All right, so the motion is for the school safety ad hoc committee to report out to the commission at the August meeting.
Correct.
And we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ann. Any discussion, comments, concerns?
That was a scratch.
Okay, all right, all in favor? Say aye. Any opposition? All right, so that's unanimous, and that will be for August as well. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. August school ad hoc. All right, so any other agenda items? So that's a fairly full summer, but are there any other agenda items that folks wanted to add for our July meeting?
We already have 4 items.
We have 4? Oh, we already 4? Okay,
Chief,
right.
We always have
Perfect.
that-
Okay,
that
so we got
fourth
4
one
on
that
there.
comes in there.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, are there any other recommended agenda items either for future items or for August?
I think we're going to come up with a lot of ideas following the September meeting.
Okay, I agree. All right, so with that, I would like to go ahead and announce our next meeting date. We are going to be dark in June in honor of Juneteenth. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, July 17th, 2024, 6 p.m. right here in the City Council chamber. And then I also, in our adjournment, I want to adjourn with an acknowledgement of two things. One, this is May is Mental Health Month, and I just really appreciate everyone's attention to that. It's a somber month this month because there have been some significant tragedies, not just in Burbank, but in the greater LA area. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And the second one I wanted to acknowledge is it's also National Peace Officers Memorial Day. On October 1st, 1962, U.S. President John F. Kennedy signed Public Law 87-726, a joint resolution of the 87th Congress, designated May 15th, today, as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of federal, state, and municipal peace officers who have been killed or disabled in the line of duty. And I want to thank Paul McKenna for bringing this material to me as well. So thank you. With that, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone.